Hello and welcome. This is the Kestrel Country Podcast, where we discuss the people, places, and events all around Kestrel Country. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Kestrel Country Podcast. We are coming at you from a bit more of a distance. I'm calling in from Troy, over doing an inspection on the building there, and joined by my lovely wife and co-host back home.
Hello, hello.
So today, Kathryn, you were able to interview Rayia Soderberg. You want to tell us a little bit about what you guys talked about and what we got coming up?
Yes, so I got to interview Rayia, and Rayia has worked with us doing staging stuff for our real estate business. She's got a great eye for design, and now she's launched Linen and Table, or started to. It's an Instagram account where you can see some of her beautiful work. But we just kind of discussed, how can you look at a home right now while we're in quarantine, for instance, and think through design elements, choices that you can make that are inexpensive, and just kind of how to beautify your space.
Yeah. Well, she certainly does great work, and we've benefited from her staging on some of our listings. I'm sure it's going to be a great interview and be helpful to everybody as they kind of have some time at home and ability to spend some time thinking and working on decorating in their home.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, let's get right into it.
Sounds good. Well, Rayia Soderberg, thank you so much for joining me. It's just me today, no Mike. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Kathryn.
Well, and we have Rayia on today because Rayia has been helping us with staging, and she has an amazing eye for this. It's a gift. And you just started Linen and Table, if that's okay to talk about.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So Linen and Table is, well, right now it's just an Instagram account, but I am working towards building it into an actual business where it's official with a state and everything like that. But for right now, I've just been doing this from my home for friends, and now I'd like to make it more public,
so I know,
I guess.
Which is more public. We're going public.
Yeah.
But no, so Rayia, you've been a huge help for us with this eye for design. So go ahead and give me a background in what first piqued your interest in design and how you kind of found yourself doing this.
Sure. So my mother is actually the person who piqued my interest in it. She has always had an eye for beauty and design. And when we were growing up, we had a big family. And so our budget was tight, and things like extra decor was not often something that money got spent on. And so she just had this great eye for taking whatever she had, wherever we were, and making it beautiful. And she taught us kids, like, wherever you go, whatever you're doing, when you leave that place more beautiful than you found it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so, yeah, that really stuck with me. And so as the years went, I just loved playing around, and she was great about like letting me have extra fabric and paint and just be super creative. So I had lots of practice in my own room growing up. And then of course, when I got married, it developed even more because I found more freedom and more ways to express that as I, had an entire home to take care of.
Right.
And so I remember when I first moved to Moscow, I was over at a wonderful lady's house for a baby shower, and she had this room that was painted red, and I had never seen anything like that before. And it just was like, oh my goodness, you could really do anything. Something about that just really struck a chord. Like, I could actually paint any color on any wall. There's no rule. Not really. So yes, after that, I just kind of started exploring more books and, obviously blogs and all of that, and kind of just trying to broaden a whole just get a better range. You grow up with a certain style or with a certain idea. And so I just started devouring all the info and the things and just having fun experimenting with stuff. So, yeah.
Now, tell me, when did you guys come to Moscow?
Let's see. I came to Moscow when I got married. So that was 17 years ago.
Okay.
Jonathan, my husband, had been here for a couple of years. He was going to school and I got married and joined him. So, yeah.
Yeah. And you guys have 2 kiddos.
We do.
So fun. Okay. Well, I had some questions that I wanted to ask Rayia, especially as we're dealing with a lot of times in our home right now. So we have some time to really stare at all of the walls and think about them. Well, yes and no, I know. I mean, it is amazing how busy you can be, when you think it shouldn't be. But so I wanted to just get some ideas and some help from you. Sure. 3 key things we should keep in mind when we're approaching a room to decorate it.
Yes. Okay. So I would say that one of the first things to do is to ask yourself what the function of the room is. That can often seem really obvious, but it's also not as simple as that. Like some people have a room and say it's a formal dining room, and the reality is you may never actually use it as that. And so it may be a good idea to really rethink what the room is and what you want it to be. So that's something I tell people, like, do you actually want it to be this? Or would you use it as something else a lot more or feel more comfortable if it was something else? So that's something I tell people. Another thing would be take a picture of the room and look at the picture and name what you see as a minus, see what you see as a plus. Think through specifically, does the room look dark? Does it look bright? Look at all the highlights and the lowlights of the room and try to pin down a little bit more what needs work versus what is just like, I actually am fine with that being that way. And I find that taking a photograph is actually really helpful. When you're in a room, everything is, multidimensional. You see and feel everything. But when you look at a picture, everything goes flat. And so it gives you a little bit better idea of where a room could use some work, I guess. Another thing would be consider proportions. Take a look. This is a great big room with a high ceiling. Maybe you need some big furniture or curtains that make the windows a lot bigger. All of those kinds of things are important to bear in mind. And those are all things I feel like people can overlook and sometimes forget to just take a moment and actually look at the room itself, like really take a look at it and analyze and evaluate it before you dive into decorating it.
I think that's a really good point, because I do think you're right. You just start putting things places without necessarily, especially if it's moving day, you just start putting things around. While we're on that topic, what would you say, and this can relate probably in different ways for different stages of life, obviously. If you are just coming out of college and married and, newlyweds, your budget is one thing. And if you've been married 10 years or 20 years, or, it might be different. Yeah. But what do you do if you have this piece of furniture that you might have spent a fair bit of money on or not? Somebody gave it to you, and so it's functional, but it is either slightly off for the style, you don't really love it, but you feel bad getting rid of it, right, for any reason, and I think couches would land in this structure where it's like, oh, I can't go through a couch. That's a big, that's a big investment piece. So I feel like you're very good at, or you switch couches. I feel like that's something where it's a scarier thing to switch. And I'm wondering if it needs to be.
No, it doesn't. That is probably one of the most common questions that I get. I have this thing and I don't want to get rid of it, or I'm scared to get rid of it, or I spent a lot of money on it, or someone, gave it to me and I feel obligated to keep it. And the short answer is don't be. Life is short, and how sad, like say your grandmother gave you something and you have other lovely things from her that remind you, but you have this one thing that you just hate. or you got it as a wedding gift, but now you don't like it anymore. Like the people who gave it to you would feel so bad if they knew how you were holding on to it out of guilt. And they don't, I mean, most people aren't going to want that
Right.
for their family. So, so don't feel guilty if you need to let it go. Another thing would be maybe repurpose it or put it in a different room would be another thing. Sometimes that thing that you think has to go in the dining room might look really pretty somewhere else, or might serve its purpose better painted or reupholstered or something like that. Sometimes it's just thinking outside of the box with something like that. So that's what I tell people, like, look at it, think outside of the box. Think about, is there another way I can use this? Am I going to be sad if I let this go? And if the answer is yes, then, find a way to work around it rather than, or actually find a way to have it work into what you're doing rather than you spending all your time working around it.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. Because I think the flip side of it could be you might have some painting that is, maybe it's valuable and your grandparents had it and you aren't in love with it, but you could probably find other items that would pull it the direction you want it to go.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And sometimes it can be as simple as just changing its location or its purpose. And suddenly it's not such an eyesore to you. Or like you said, a painting, maybe you just decide, well, I have this one painting, so I'm going to start collecting paintings similar and just create a mural, like a beautiful collage on a wall, and create a really fun dramatic effect. And suddenly it's not an eyesore anymore to you. It's rather something that has become something else. And it's, like I said, just where you are incorporating it into what you're doing rather than like trying to spend all this time working around this thing that just keeps tripping you up.
Maybe literally sometimes.
Yes, exactly. Coffee table.
Yes. Something too big. Well, and that kind of goes into our next question, which was, how do you decorate with what you already have? So when we're in lockdown kind of right now, where we're not going out shopping, we're not thrifting, we're not, we can order stuff, but a lot right now, it's not necessarily when people are spending money on purchases like that.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you suggest repurposing what you already have?
Yeah. So I would say rearrange your furniture. That's always helpful. And I do that often. And my children love to laugh at me for that, but they always love it when it's done.
Yes.
So I would definitely say now is actually a great time to do that. So rearrange your furniture, declutter, tile everything that you have on the walls on a table or a bed and take a look at it. And, maybe like I said earlier, just moving it to a different location and getting a different idea, like mixing and matching things that, go through your closet. I think people would be surprised if they took all the decor that they had in their storage or attics or, closets, put it all out on the table and then just went shopping on their own table. Like, what do I have? And also looking at simple little fixes like, can I paint it to just change the color? Maybe you don't like, blue anymore and you're totally into green or whatever. Sometimes just changing the color can make a big difference. Also, sometimes simple little things like using a mixing bowl as decor rather than having this cute mixing bowl in your cupboard. Little things like that, I think, can get easily overlooked. Maybe you have really pretty drinking glasses that should just be out as decor in your kitchen rather than behind cupboard doors. So little things like that help when you don't want to spend any money on anything, but you'd like to do a refresh. Another simple thing to do is, and it's usually pretty inexpensive, is take the couch pillows that you have and order really inexpensive ones on Amazon. They're great for packs of pillows. And that is a wonderful way to make a big statement in a room without changing much and spending very, very little money. Another fun thing to do is use tablecloths as curtains.
Oh,
and it's really great. I did this for a long time.
That's amazing.
Because,
This is new. This is new for me.
Well, curtains are expensive,
Yes.
and when you're really tight,
Yeah.
it's just not great. So one way to do it is to buy really inexpensive tablecloths and clip them and hang them up, and you can get them in all, every color imaginable and pattern and whatnot. And the little, you can either sew it real quick, like a simple seam to hang it up on a rod, or you can just buy the little clips for it, and that's super inexpensive and easy too. But it makes a huge statement. Another great thing to do is like with lamps, just replacing the lampshade. Super cheap, super easy, and it just totally can change the look of your lamp. So those are like little things that are helpful for giving a room a refresh. And then another thing you can never, have enough of is flowers. But
I 100% agree on that.
That's all the decor room really needs.
They do. They need that pop of something green or something fresh. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, and so Raya's done a lot with our beautiful staging work on the real estate side. And I feel like the piles of green plants, you can never have enough green plants.
Nope.
We will move them sometime for pictures.
Yep.
Because you need one.
Yeah, it's always good.
Yes. And the fake, it's impressive. I don't mind the fake plants that much. Well, I don't mind them at all. I like them. So.
Yeah. I used to be so opposed to them.
Yes.
Like, just thought, no, you can't possibly do that. But the reality is that when you're staging or when you're in a season of life where you are very busy, they're just wonderful to have. And they can really make a big difference in a home with very little cost and then no maintenance, obviously.
Yep.
I'm a big fake plant person now.
I know. Well, so I actually got from Target, it arrived today because I was trying to do a little something for Easter. So I'm going off topic here, but I got a little vase with fake ranunculus, or I think they're supposed to be ranunculus, but it was just like a little teeny pop of something extra because Easter's approaching and I was already getting a Target dress for Sophie for Easter.
Exactly.
So it arrived
in the cart.
Yes, exactly. And it was, yay. It's super cheerful, Good.
That
extra little bit of decor. But anyways, back to on topic here. So my next question, though, we will talk about setting a table for Easter, but is how do you hone in on your style? So it's easy to get distracted by all the trends that are coming in and out.
Yeah.
But how do you either, bring that in with your style or figure out what you're using, what your style is?
Sure. Pinterest is a great tool. I have found that I think sometimes people can get very carried away with what they think a style looks like or should be based on one thing that they saw or something someone said. Or, they might think, well, I don't like traditional because that's what Granny had. Or, whatever. Right. And the reality is that that's not necessarily what traditional is. And so I would say, if you think you know what your style is, type it in. Or if you're interested in a certain style, type it in, traditional farmhouse, modern farmhouse, whatever the case may be, and see what comes up. And that'll give you at least an idea, a baseline. Do I actually like that, or is that just a fun thing or whatever? So Pinterest is a great tool for that. You can get lost in Pinterest. So, fair warning.
Right.
But it's a good idea to just, it's a free and quick way to just get an idea, a rough overview of something that you may or may not like. One thing that I have found helpful is just simply to not worry so much about what your style is as much as what you love. So I spent a lot of time getting kind of lost in this idea, like, what's my style? Because I like everything. And as I started just realizing that my style wasn't a particular style, like it didn't fit in a particular box necessarily, as much as it was just unique because it was all things that I loved, that helped free me up a little bit to to enjoy it a little bit more. But also then I noticed, because I wasn't trying so hard, I did just naturally start falling into more clear lines of what my style actually was. And, not everyone is going to be like that. Some people may need, more guidance as far as they don't know what they like at all.
Right.
And I have had a few people chat with me like that before and just say, I actually have no clue. I'm starting from the ground up. And so those are more the people that I'm like, okay, well, find me one picture that you really like, and then we'll talk about it. So I would say that. And I'd say, ask yourself questions like, start with one thing. Why do I like this? Or why do I like that person's home? That's another helpful thing to think about. Do you like someone's home in particular? If you do, what is it you like about it? So I would say that that's some of it. Just being more self-aware, I guess, can be very helpful in choosing or honing in on what your particular style is and what speaks to you. But it's also important to take your family and into account as well. I know I have, as I mentioned, I come from a large family, and some of my brothers have really strong senses of design as well. And they have styles that they love too. And when they got married, they had to learn how to mesh that with their wife and their wife with them. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's something that's important too.
Like, 100%. Yes.
You might love shabby chic, but does your husband?
Right.
Well,
and I think that comes into that function category too. But yes. I think your point on loving somebody's home, why do you love about that home? And it wouldn't necessarily just be the items in it, but it's probably, well, I went over there for dinner. Their family was so cheerful and welcoming.
Yeah.
And they're, and it might be that they have a kid corner over here set up, and it's not, and it's not perfect, or any stretch. Cause we're never like the Pinterest pictures or the listing pictures. That's not real life.
No.
But the charm, I think, can completely be there, where sometimes we're tempted to want to push and hide things away. You kind of mentioned this with the mixing bowl, but the same thing kind of goes with kids or Christmas tree decorations or all of those things.
Exactly.
Where I think we can have the pretty picture, and then sometimes the charm of what somebody else in your family loves trumps it 100 times over.
Yes, exactly. And that's why, asking your family, ask yourself what you love and what style you like, but ask your family too, or just be aware of what stage you're in. Mm-hmm. An empty nester's home is going to look different than a home with a bunch of little ones.
Right.
And it should, it should look different because you're in a different season. And so, I think that you're exactly spot on when you say that, it's not even so much the decor, it may be the feel of another person's home. And so being aware of the feeling you want your home to have might be even more important than being aware of what your style, quote unquote, is. Because that will be what you build out of more on a day-to-day basis than a style.
Right.
Unless you just have unlimited money and, you have your children don't care or they're not home or whatever the case may be. But, it really matters. And that goes back to what I was saying too about the function of the space. Mm-hmm. Really be aware, are you going to use that office? Is it just sitting there, not being used, or could it be something else? Maybe it's a better children's room or something like that. But yes, I agree with you on that.
No, I think that's it's a great reminder. And if you're living in a small space, like our house isn't huge. It's a, old farmhouse. So you do want to make the most of every single corner. And utilize it so that it's being functional, and not just, cute or whatever.
Exactly. Yes.
In the corner. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to jump to our last question here for time.
Go for it.
And that is because Easter's coming up, talking about tips for setting the table.
Oh, yes. I love setting a table.
I know, and you are so good at it.
Okay. So I would say the first thing I would say is use your pretty things. Mm-hmm. so many people pack their pretty things away, or they only get it out for Christmas or Easter. And I love to tell people, use your things, use your pretty things. There's no reason for things to just sit in a cupboard, sad and forgotten.
Right.
So, just
risk
speaking from an everyday. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. But that's kind of life is that's the way life is.
Yep.
We are meant to use things up.
Yes, absolutely.
And wear them out.
Just like us.
And so, exactly. And I mean, I've always found it so sad. I have gone to dozens of yard sales, well, probably hundreds in my life. And it's so sad. I see boxes and boxes of grandma's china sitting, and people just like, they're brand new looking because nobody ever used them.
Right.
And I find that so sad. Here's this whole lifetime that went by, and it's just, they just sat there.
Yep.
So use the pretty things. You have to use plates and glasses and flatware anyway. So they might as well be ones you love.
Yeah.
So I would say, but specifically for Easter, obviously get out all the beautiful things. Just go over the top. Tablecloths or runners are so great. And layering, I think, is really important for a really beautiful table. That's what makes a table really special, is layers. So, if you can, chargers and then the plates, and have fun with it. Again, Pinterest is great because it'll give you lots of really great ideas. Centerpieces don't have to be these big over-the-top floral arrangements. Sometimes the simplest ones are actually the prettiest. And I mean, I do enjoy setting tables, but I will say that it's pretty rare when I just whip it off without a thought, as far as taking the time to sit down and think through what I want to do, or playing with it before I finally settle on it. So I think that it's just one of those things you need to take the time to think about. So if you can, plan ahead for it. Plan to either do it the night before everything is chaotic,
right.
like Saturday night, and just ask the kids, don't touch. Let's try to have this stay nice if you can, and if you can't, that's fine too. Get the kids involved was always really fun too. I know my daughter and my son loved to help me when they were little, set a pretty table. So
making the place
getting
cards.
them involved.
Yep.
Exactly. Making the place cards, and also making sure, yes, use your pretty things, but if you can't have those things out and not be panicking with your children at the table, don't do it.
Right. That ruins the whole.
It's not worth it. Exactly. It ruins the whole thing.
Or just be ready for them to break it. And yes, but then
exactly,
absolutely
be prepared.
Ready. Yes.
Yes. Have your heart ready.
Yep.
To just let that go if that cup gets dropped.
Yes.
I think in the last 2 weeks, my children have totally accidentally, but broken so many of my things.
Everybody's home way more.
Everybody's home. It's been funny. But yes, so I would say that, really involve the children, but use your pretty things, but only if you can do it in such a way that everyone's having fun.
Right.
And everyone's getting to enjoy the fact that this is pretty. And otherwise, maybe you just need to do something simpler, but still have fun with it and get the kids involved and, fun and goofy little details that they will get a kick out of. So.
No, I think that's great.
Yeah.
The candy on the table is always the fun, easy one
right?
for our kids, and adults, realistically. I mean, I get excited about jelly beans on the table. But
right?
Yes.
Or Cadbury eggs, there's
chocolate.
that.
Well, and I think what's fun, so for instance, we shrunk our table down for the first time in, I'm not sure how many years. It's been small because, so there's just the 6 of us, but that means I can actually use this tablecloth I got for my birthday that'll fit on only the smaller version. So I think there's an opportunity. Maybe we only have a few items of certain things. And so, if we're only dealing with a few people because of our quarantine situation, it might be a fun way to get to use some of the things, simply because, we didn't have enough of them for a bigger group.
Exactly. And that's actually one thing that is kind of fun. about when you're in a circumstance that maybe is not your favorite, like not being able to have 50 people over for Easter dinner, but is to try and look for the things that make it special for this time, this season, and this moment in your life, and then really pay attention to what will also make it special for the family, and how to bless them with just a lot of extra whatever. If it's candy, I know some kids like having candles on the table is the thing that just makes it the special moment. And sometimes it is for the dads too, like sweetheart, I know there's a lot of guys who don't care, but if they do, finding out what it is that makes it really special for them. For us and our Easter table, it's about the flowers and trying to go over the top with flowers if we can, just because it's spring, and then definitely having candy at each place, place setting, and cloth napkins, make it feel just super fun. But there have been plenty of seasons when my kids were little where we just did fun polka dot paper napkins or whatever, because then they weren't worried about, can I even wipe my mouth?
Oh, that's for sure.
But there's a lot of ways to make even paper plates and disposable things super fun too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do think, again, it's probably that the level of thinking ahead about the overall look, like you were discussing. So even if you're doing paper and, there's so many great disposable, the gold plasticware is fantastic. The shiny gold plasticware. I love it. But thinking through your layout on that makes the presentation. So and don't do it when you're in the middle of cooking. Like, try to do it ahead of time. Plan ahead of time so that it doesn't sprung on you, or you feel like the last minute just throw the plates down. But you're actually having, you're having fun because you're relaxed. You've got it all planned out, and then you can also play with it, and you might then you will find yourself being more creative that way if you can take the time to think through it and actually just give yourself a minute to plan something out. So. Yeah, no, that's great. Well, Rayia, we should wrap it up, but thank you so much. And we'll link to your linen and table Instagram in the comments for this, or the notes for this rather, if that's okay.
That's perfect. Thank you, Kathryn, for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, have a wonderful Easter, because I probably won't see you.
Yes.
and
you as well.
Yes, thank you. And thanks so much for your tips, and we'll be in touch.
Okay. Thanks, Kathryn.
Thanks, Rayia. We'll see you. Thanks for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.